Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I'm going to be breaking down the NBA trade deadline for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This video is going to be kind of three parts. The first part is I'm going to talk about who could be traded from the team. The second part, I'm going to talk about who maybe we could bring in through a trade. And number three, I will make my official predictions for who I think the Thunder go out and trade for, what moves get made at the deadline. I thought this would be kind of fun, as in my opinion, the biggest Thunder fan in the world. I've done a lot of research and thinking about this, so I'm pretty excited to kind of share my thoughts and opinions, and I think it could be a fun one for the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's a lot of different possibilities, so let's go ahead and get into it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I drop Thunder and NBA content in general pretty much every single day, so don't miss out on that, especially with the trade deadline right around the corner. Gonna make a video reacting to pretty much every single move that goes down. So, starting off, who could be traded? And to start a section with who could be traded, I have to talk about who I don't think will be traded. I think guys like Shea, Dort, Giddey, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Aaron Wiggins, Trey Mann, Darius Bazley, all the big names are pretty safe. I don't see any of those guys getting moved. They're all young pieces. They're here to stay for the foreseeable future. Maybe at some point down the line, a piece or two of those get moved for like a bigger name, but I personally don't see that happening at this trade deadline, so I think all of those guys are pretty much 100% safe. Barring, of course, Sam Presti doing something that's completely out of the blue, which is not completely out of the blue for him. So, now we move into who could be traded, and the biggest names I think are Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala. Kenrich Williams is a Thunder fan favorite. If you're not a Thunder fan, watch some of his games. You may even be a fan of a different team, coming to this video hoping to hear me predict that Kenrich Williams is going to get traded to your favorite team, because I know a lot of fans of other teams have reached out to me and said, hey, how could we get Kenrich Williams on this squad? Like, do you think the Thunder are trading him? Like, a lot of people just basically really want Kenrich Williams, and it makes sense why. He does everything that a championship team needs from a role player. He defends, he hits his shots, he makes all those hustle plays, given his nickname Kenny Hustle. He's one of those guys that really the stat sheet doesn't quite show the impact he has on games. He multiple times this season has led 15-plus point comebacks almost by himself. The energy that he comes and brings into the game is contagious, and it's kind of hard to believe that we got him as a throw-in from the Steven Adams trade to the Pelicans. So, all in all, Kenrich Williams is a very valuable piece to our team, and he's someone that I personally do not want to see get moved. I want Kenrich Williams to be here for a very long time, because as I mentioned, I think Kenrich Williams is one of those guys that when you are competing for a championship is super integral. You need those guys that make the hustle plays, the guys that will get down, they will play tough defense when you need it to, and just provide that spark, give that energy to a team. And so he's a guy that I think we could keep on a cheap contract all the way up until we start competing again. And he said even in interviews that he wants to be here for a very long time. He never wants to leave OKC, so I'm hopeful that he won't get traded. What will it cost teams to trade for him is a question, though, that we do need to answer. And according to multiple reports that I've seen, to get Kenrich Williams from the Thunder, you would have to give up at least a first-round pick. And a lot of you might be saying, oh, he averages this stats, he's not worth that. I promise, if you watch a Thunder game, and all my Thunder fans can attest to this, if you watch a Thunder game, you will understand why Kenny Hustle has that type of value. The things that he brings to the game, like I just mentioned, they're worth a first-round pick, especially for a contending team. Names that have been rumored include like the Suns, the Bulls. I'm sure a team like the Bucks would love him. The Lakers are another team that has been mentioned, I've seen in rumors. All of those teams would love to bring in Kenrich Williams, and all their first-round picks, except maybe the Lakers. That one will probably be a little bit better because they're struggling right now. But all of those teams aren't looking to use their first-round picks either this year or in the coming years because they're planning on contending. It's not like a rebuilding team trading a top 5 first-round pick. A lot of those teams could even lottery protect that pick, and it might still work out if they throw in like a player or another asset. So, Kenrich Williams is a guy that I personally think, out of anyone that is most likely to be moved, it is him, as well as Mike Muscala. Mike Muscala is the second big name that I think could be moved. Now, the price for him is a little less clear because Kenrich Williams is the number one guy that teams want from us, that we've been receiving calls about, as far as I know. But Mike Muscala, maybe you could get like a lottery protected first from him. He's a great floor stretching big, someone that a lot of teams could use as well. There have been rumors that teams really want those two guys, Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala, in a package of maybe a first round pick and a young piece or something like that. But for Mike Muscala, I could definitely see him going for like a couple seconds, maybe like a second and a player or something like that. I personally, once again, don't want to see Mike Muscala get traded, but I think teams could definitely have him for less value than they could Kenrich Williams. So those are the two guys that I could see getting traded. You could also throw in like a Derek Favors. I think you could probably get him for like a protected second round pick. I really don't think his value is that high, but I could see a team that needs a decent backup big coming to us and being like, hey, we'll give you this protected second round pick, and Sam Presti's gonna be like, sure, because his value isn't going to go up anymore. You might as well get what you can from him while clearing up space for younger guys to play the center position, like Mamadi Diakite, who we've brought in on a 10-day contract multiple times, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. When he comes back from injury, Baisley's got some run at center, so just giving young guys more of an opportunity. And Isaiah Roby is another guy who played big minutes last season that I don't really think is really ever going to quite get back into the rotation the way he wants to be. So I could see him getting moved just to maybe clear up a roster spot, or maybe a team's just willing to take him on in maybe like a throw-in trade for a salary dump, which we'll talk about in a second. So those are the guys I could see being traded. In terms of who could be traded for, this is probably why most of you came to this video. Who are the Thunder going to get at the trade deadline? And I came up with a list of 5 names that I could see realistically the Thunder potentially going out and getting, as well as a couple long shots that I think there's no way in hell it happens, but I have seen people talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it anyways. So the 5 names, the first one is Mo Bamba. Second one, Marvin Bagley. Third, PJ Washington. 4, Thomas Bryant. And the 5th one is Serge Ibaka. If you'll notice, they are all bigs. And that's because that's what the Thunder need. As I was just talking about, dealing Isaiah Roby could open up space for some young bigs. But if you noticed, I mentioned like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who is kind of smaller, and Darius Baisley, who's typically a power forward. We don't really have a young traditional center. And so that's where maybe this deadline comes in. Mo Bamba, for example, I think he would be great on this team. He would provide some floor spacing, he could protect the rim, and if the Magic are willing to give him up for cheap, maybe even like a first-round pick, which we have a billion of, I would love to see the Thunder go out and take a chance on him. Same with a Marvin Bagley, who the Kings are rumored to be really wanting to get rid of. Maybe if you could just go get him for cheap for like a first-round pick, bring him in, kind of test him out. There's no reason not to if you send out like some protected pick that you don't think will be very good. For example, like the Suns pick this year that we have, I think maybe could be used in one of these trades. You also have a PJ Washington, who's not quite a center, but he's a floor spacer who could really help out the guys because the Thunder, if you didn't know, can't shoot threes. Thomas Bryant is another guy who fits that category as a floor stretcher while also being more of a traditional center, being bigger than a PJ Washington. And finally, you have Serge Ibaka, who I think we could get in a salary dump from the Clippers. They throw in like a small asset, and we just take on Serge Ibaka's contract to get them out of the luxury tax. So those are 5 guys. Personally, for me, if I had to pick one of those, probably like a Mo Bamba, I think, or maybe like a PJ Washington, but I would be cool with any of those guys. I really want to see this team bring in a traditional big. Specifically, I want to see someone athletic, which is why I typically lean towards the Mo Bamba, because I think it would be super fun to see Giddey and Shea play with a lob threat of some kind. We really don't have any big lob threats on this team. We've got some more athletic guys like Trey Mann. At the guard position, even caught a lob. Darius Baisley has some crazy dunks and stuff, but no one truly at the center position that's a high flyer. So I would love to see us go out and get a Mo Bamba who has a long wingspan, could throw on some alley-oops, because I think that would be huge for the games of both Giddey and Shea. 2 guys that like to attack the basket and are really solid playmakers, if they could have a guy like that that could not only dive to the basket, but could also step out and stretch the floor like a Mo Bamba, for example. So I have no problem. I'd be pretty cool with seeing the Thunder trade a first-round pick for one of those guys. Not saying one of our own picks, but we have a billion of them, so I would not mind that at all. Now, the 2 long shots that I came up with were Domantas Sabonis and John Collins. I don't see any way in hell we trade for either of those guys. I think it's just kind of unrealistic at this point. Right now, the point of this season is to let young guys develop and kind of have a bad record overall, tank, if you will, and go for one of those top prospects, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, Jaden Ivey, Jabari Smith, whatever. Just go out and get one of those top prospects. That is the goal of this season. And then next year, I could maybe see us, say we get like one of those top guys, this roster starts to kind of become too good to tank, and then maybe in the offseason we try and go out and make a splash for one of those guys. That's when I could see one of those trades going down. But personally for me, I don't see it happening. Sabonis, I don't think makes a ton of sense on this team. He doesn't really stretch the floor the way we need him to. He just doesn't really fit the kind of what we're going for. John Collins does stretch the floor more, but I don't think we quite have a package that the Atlanta Hawks would want. The best players we have are wings, and I don't think that they're looking for any more of those, considering they just traded Cam Reddish, a wing, kind of away for nothing, while also bringing in a wing in Kevin Knox. So I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think they want to go out and get like Kenrich Williams. Mike Mike Muscala is not going to be enough, and we'd have to throw in picks anyways. And once again, just doesn't quite fit the timeline. So I don't see any of those happening. I know I've seen people mention those, so I thought I would put that out there. So with all that being said, what is my prediction personally? You might be kind of unhappy with it because I don't expect much. I don't think a lot's going to happen. I would be stunned if we didn't make at least one trade. I think really what's going to happen is I think we do end up holding on to Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala. At least Kenrich Williams, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that we're going to end up keeping him. I think his value to this team is very clear. I think the guys like him, and having his value at a first-round pick, I'm not quite sure if any team is going to match that. And also the report says at least a first-round pick. So that could mean the Thunder want even more, and I think teams just they're going to be kind of hesitant to trade for him despite how great he is. I think we do end up holding a high value on him because we want to keep him. So I think we hold on to Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala. I just don't know if the market is quite as much out there for him as a Kenrich, so I think we keep both of those guys. That being said, I do think we bring in at least one salary dump player with an asset attached, and if I had to pick someone, I would say it would be Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka, if the Clippers trade him, would save a ton of money. They would get out of the luxury tax, and all they would probably have to do is attach like a second-round pick to Serge Ibaka for us to take him into our salary cap space, and then we could either buy him out, just have him sit or whatever, or, maybe he could even come in and play just for the hell of it. But I do think we would probably end up buying him out or just dealing him off to someone else, clearing up a roster spot eventually to end up signing guys like Mamadi Diakite and Aaron Wiggins to full contracts. Wiggins has a 100% earned that type of contract, and Diakite, there's rumors that the Thunder really do like him and want to keep him long term, so it makes sense to sign him to a full contract. So I could see us clearing up a roster spot with either buying out a salary dump player or even dealing one of Derek Favors or Isaiah Roby just for like a protected second round pick, maybe even waiving a guy like Isaiah Roby just to kind of clear up that space so that we can sign those two guys that we like a lot. So I don't foresee us going out and getting like a Bamba, a Bagley, or anything like that. I do think it is possible, but to me personally, I think this is going to be a quieter deadline for us. I think when it really starts to maybe get noisier is in this offseason and heading into next season. Because this season, right now, just let the guys we have develop, see what they're all capable of to kind of make decisions about personnel going forward. And then next season, I think we could start to work towards playing, because already this team with Shea playing is kind of like a fringe playing team. Like they're kind of close. They're not as bad as some of these other teams. And so I think a play-in spot becomes more realistic next season. So I wouldn't be surprised if we make a move trading for a young guy like that in the offseason. But for me personally, I just don't see it happening now. So those are my thoughts on the Thunder going forward for this trade deadline. Let me know what your prediction is for the Thunder. If you're a fan of another team, let me know what your prediction is for your favorite team. Or would you want a Kenrich Williams or Mike Muscala on this team? If you're a fan of one of those teams I mentioned, like the Magic with Mo Bamba, the Wizards with Thomas Bryant, etc. Let me know what you think, what you would want from the Thunder for one of those guys. I'm always open to that information because it kind of helps me gauge what fans of different teams are wanting. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed kind of my breakdown. We'll see. Maybe it's more interesting than I'm giving it credit for. I do think there's a lot that's going to go down across the league. I'm just not quite sure the Thunder are going to be super involved. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.